Welcome to Modern Tech and Transformation with Resolve Tech Solutions. I am Carla Hartman, VP of Marketing at Resolve Tech, and I am joined today by Michael Brown, Director of Architecture at Resolve Tech Solutions. If you have not tuned in before and heard Michael's backstory, be sure to go back and re-listen to episode 1. And we've talked about some really awesome things that you don't want to miss out on anyways. But today we're going to talk about just the overall speed of technological change. And from a business standpoint, the speeds are jarring, right? If you're not keeping up, you risk being left behind. So let's just talk about the speed of technological change. It's like nothing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that, Michael? Like, let's dive in right there.
Yeah, the speed of the speed of transformation. Well, actually, it's not even transformation yet, but the speed of innovation in AI is unlike anything I've ever seen. If you're watching this podcast, please hear me. You need to invest a little bit of time and try ChatGPT. Start using it. Figure out how it can help you be a force multiplier, because it's moving so fast. I've never seen anything like it. There's never been anything like it. And I think it's moving so fast that it's hard to see, because our traditional systems and our traditional, organizations and the things, they're not changing, because I literally think it's just being wiped out from under them. And I think that in months, in the next couple of years, I think we're going to see them fundamentally transform, because it's just there's just so much that can be done.
Where do you even start? It can be overwhelming.
Yeah.
It can be overwhelming. This speed of change, it is.
Well, it is, and
it's hard to digest.
Absolutely, and I think where you first have to start is you can't know it all. Don't try to know it all, but just put a stake in the ground somewhere and go. What's so crazy to me is I meet people in our industry in technology, and I mention ChatGPT to them, or I just talk about it. I'm like, oh yeah, ChatGPT, and they're like, yeah, I haven't used that, and I'm floored, and I'm like, dude.
I guess my next question would be, why do you think they haven't? Do you think they haven't had a use for it? I think any person could find a use for it, but that's just my thinking. Yeah. Or do you think there's some intimidation? Like when my husband, for instance, hears AI, he asked me, he's like, how long does it take to get information back? I'm like, you've never tried it? And one, I don't think he's as interested in this stuff. But at the same time, I think he also thinks Carla works in technology. I don't. Why would I even want to use this? Maybe it's intimidating. I don't know. I never asked him why he hasn't used it. Maybe I should have started there. But why do you think people haven't?
I think it's a human. I think it's it's human nature. I mean, we resist adding new things. I mean, your life is full. Your life is busy without this technology, right?
That's true.
So no matter who you are, what industry you're in, you're busy, and a lot of times you just have defense mechanisms. It's like, nah, not that. Until it gets to the point it just slaps you in the life face so hard you're just like, whoa. So, but if you are in business, and it doesn't have to be technology. This is not technology focused things. The models are getting better. The models are, I think we talked earlier. They're not fabricating reality as much anymore. I think you can still trick them. But they're getting super usable, and you can talk about, like, I'll give a random, that I was showing my father. My father's an engineer, has been practicing for a very long time, and I was like, watch this. And so he works in a manufacturing industry, to where he specializes. One of his capabilities is he installs silos, like these 100-foot round storage bins. And there's a lot of complexity goes into stuff like that, like the foundations, how deep, how wide, the complexity of the ground soil, like how does that work? And I just typed into ChatGPT. It's like, act like a geoengineer and walk through what the main components of standing up a 100-foot silo that can hold 86,000 pounds. I typed that into ChatGPT. It literally spit out 90% of what my dad does as a practice. Think about that. somebody who knows nothing about something that complex. That had nothing to do with technology, nothing to do with computers or programming. It had to do with loads and dynamic loads and static loads and how it all worked. It just listed it out. So could I take that and be an engineer with it? No. But it gave me enough information to know what I need to look up, what I need to think about, what I need to ask somebody. It prepares you with a lot of information.
So you mentioned personas, and I see that AI is being used a lot in retail, in consumer-focused organizations. How important do you think persona use is going to be? If an organization was skipping over that before and they want to use AI, how important is that going to be?
I don't know. That's almost like an existential question. I mean, think about it. Like, so if you have this robot, and the robot will give you information and answers, but it will give you better information and answers if you tell it who it is. So ask yourself, who am I? I am a solution architect. I serve my customer, right? You start asking yourself who am, and that gives you the context of how to answer the questions. And so I think you might have been mentioning persona from another way, but you have to give the robot a persona so that they can answer the questions in the way that you're wanting it answered.
Okay.
So that's one way. Were you asking about the persona of the people?
Yeah, your target market.
Targets.
Because we help a lot of retail clients, right?
Yeah.
That's something we do in our business. How can I improve the customer experience? My competitors using AI, my competitors using IoT, and my competitors using mobile applications. Some of these retail organizations that we work with have invested in mobile applications. They have invested in the IoT devices, and they're really trying to understand their customer more because they know AI is going to be able to help them better target their customer. But those that haven't, I think they're going to need to hire in some help, not because they might not have the in-house expertise, but because they have some catching up to do.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree that, when you look at the competition, especially in retail, and you look at companies like Amazon. So, some of the research I did, I don't remember how many models it was. Are you an Amazon customer? Do you buy from Amazon?
I plan on doing all my holiday shopping on Amazon. I have the credit card. I rack up the points, and my son's going to get a gift in that realm of what I've saved. So yes, I'm the best Amazon customer
right?
that could be.
So, do you like getting things in next day? Or
It's
2 days,
convenient.
next days, or same day sometimes?
Of course.
So, the research that I did is, and I can't remember how many models, but sometimes it's dozens or more. Every single product on Amazon's website has multiple models running to look at a couple of things, right? So, some models run a couple of times, every hour. Some run daily, some run weekly, some run monthly. These models could run multiple times a day, multiple times a week, multiple times a month. But what they're doing is they're looking at if you get something within 2 days, or or next day or same day, that's because 60, 90, 120 days ago, they predicted that product was going to be purchased by somebody like you from that location. So the idea of supply chain is just been completely flipped around. They're predicting what's going to be happening at a high level of confidence. So that to a high enough level of confidence that they're selecting the products that they want, buying the products that they want, and then placing the products at particular locations to be able to hit the fulfillment rates that we're seeing, right? The idea of getting something same day, next day, in 2 days is amazing. And they're doing it consistently, day after day after day. And when you see that type of competition, and if you're not using anything today, what are you going to do? And here's the question that I ask. I said, so I don't know what their confidence levels are. That's not something Amazon's going to share. But what happens if their confidence level reaches 91, 92%? Let's say you needed something, right? Like a shampoo or something for the kitchen. You needed it, and Amazon's like, they're 91% sure that you need that. What happens if you get home one day and it's just sitting there, the brand that you like?
Oh, I would love that.
Would you send it back?
No.
Because you didn't order it. They just thought that you needed it.
Yeah, and they're going to charge you for it too.
Of course they are.
But right now Alexa reminds me, and it's rather convenient.
Yeah.
So, and that, I think that's a really good use of technology
Mhm.
in retail business. Another use I've been seeing, if you do any food apps, right, directly to the restaurant. So say it's a Chick-fil-A or a Taco Bell. If you're ordering in the app, I've noticed they will, to get you to order, they'll say, if you spend $10, you can get a free chicken sandwich from Chick-fil-A, because that's something they've seen you order in the past. So that's a little bit more simplistic, but I enjoy helping when our company helps retailers, because then as a consumer, I see it put to work. These mobile apps, these Amazon type fulfillments, the supply chain, the stock-based ordering, just there's so much cool stuff happening in retail. And they've said in the past, one machine can replace 50 men. That's an old quote. What do you think it is now?
It's more. It's absolutely more. And whatever the number is today, it's only that low because we haven't truly absorbed the change that's occurred, right? Once we absorb it and optimize it, it's going to be even higher, right? It'll be twofold or fourfold. The force multiplier that's occurring with AI today, and when we say AI, right? So you've got the generative AI conversational models that we talk about. That's a huge force multiplier. And then we have, like in the retail apps, right? Being able to understand behavior through interaction, through abstract interaction. The machine learning models can detect behavior and understand patterns, to where we as humans, we look at the data and we're like, it looks good, But the models go, there's a pattern here, and that pattern is multiple level deeps, but it can see it and it's repeatable. And so when you can start getting information and inference like that, it's just like, if your competitor's doing it and you're not doing it, I'd hate to compete with them.
Yeah, and the human mind can only take in so much
That's
of
right.
that data, right? So these machine learning algorithms, and as a consumer, I like it, to be honest with you. It makes my life more convenient. I'm a working mom.
Absolutely.
I'm busy. I'm thinking about a million things, like what am I going to cook for dinner? What do I need? If someone could do my grocery shopping list by AI, if I could just pick out a few recipes and then they say, these are the ingredients, it shows up at my door.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, if a robot could cook it too, great.
Yeah.
I actually enjoy cooking, but I think the possibilities are endless. So let's talk about some other, these are sometimes a little bit of predictive AI, right? Let's talk through some other business use cases for the predictive, not so much the generative AI, but the predictive.
So I mean, it's really, when you look at predictive, right? It's really about a lot of times. It goes back to those Excel spreadsheets, right? When you have Excel spreadsheets and you're like, well, what is next month going to look like, or what is next week going to look like, or and we usually see it around, what are the key indicators that your business is using. A lot of times you want predictive analytics on those key indicators, because that's how you're running your business. What are your constraints? What are your revenues? What are your inventory levels? Those types of things. And what's super interesting is the machine learning models. When you start out and you do baseline, right? You get some understanding, and then the machine learning models can help you categorize the types of orders that you have, categorize the types of the types of interactions that you're having with clients, or the types of inventory you have. And when we let the models just do the analysis, sometimes they come back with information that we didn't see. And then you go, well, that's interesting. And then you do another level of analysis on it. So that brings me to a point. When we talk about AI, when we talk about ML, we talk about predictive analytics, there's not a product to buy. There's not a license to buy that gives it to you. And it's something that we don't usually see in enterprise or in business. And it's called experimentation. You have to build, if you want to be at the nature and the state of AI today, you have to have a lab, and you have to have the ability to experiment with your own data. And if you can't have a lab and experiment with your own data, that's step number one. If you don't have a place to where you can bring your own data in and start running experiments with different models and different algorithms on it, then that's step number one that you need to do.
And that's why we have JunoLabs.ai.
That's right.
so we can experiment. A neat thing, and just this conversation triggered something. A lot of clients, I'll talk to a lot of salespeople, business people, and in marketing, you get RFIs, RFPs. They're tedious. I don't think I've ever met anyone that says, I can't wait to fill out this RFP.
Yeah.
I can't wait. So there are predictive models that we have started using where we put in, okay, this RFP aligns with what we do in our business. This is the score, right? And then we generate the response, and we're even starting to use AI for some of the response generation, which I love that because, as I said, no one gets excited. Well, you get excited when an RFP comes in because it could mean new business,
it's an opportunity.
but you don't the opportunity. But you don't get excited about actually completing the task. And then from there, once we get the results of the RFP or RFI, if we're down selected, if we actually close the business, then we can look at those old scores, like where was it in the alignment, right? And then where did it end up and what's the revenue? So there's a lot of cool data that goes into that, and just so many predictive use cases. So once we get all this data in there, we'll be able to predict, are we going to win this RFP, RFI?
What's our chance?
Yeah, what is our chance? And if our chances are below a certain threshold that the business determines, then your team's not chasing around different people. I mean, the generative AI plays into that, the predictive analytics. It's going to be game changing. And as a technology company, it's very easy for us to implement this stuff because we have a lab. We have Juno Labs, right? We have technologists. We have the right people, process, and technology. But for businesses that don't, that's why they reach out to us, which is great. But that's just a use case, as you were talking, that came up. But let's dive deeper into this, because then it gets my wheels turning, because I do have access to a lab, right?
That's right.
And I also love when I'm talking to customers, I see it at the beginning, and then I get to see the end result from the work we do. I don't get to do the actual work, but I love listening to the stories. So let's dive a little bit more into some of this predictive stuff.
Sure. So in predictive, so we talked a little bit about business, right? We talked about sales. We talked about inventories. Any key metric that you are looking at in a business, you could probably, if you have enough data, and honestly, some of the algorithms that the cloud providers are providing are driving the amount of data that you need down. Like used to in the very beginning, you had to have a lot of data to train what was good and what was not so good. And now they're building these generalized models that allow you to get high confidence algorithms with a lot less data. It doesn't mean no data, but a lot less data. So when you start looking at predictive, you can't. One of the things that pops in my brain is manufacturing or industry in general, and things like fixed assets, infrastructure, things that rotate, vibrate, move things, right? Anything under pressure. There's already
energy industry.
Oh, absolutely, energy. Well, I mean, energy production, the transmission lines, the transformers, everything. There's already data. There's already instrumentation and data on those systems, right? And a lot of times they're looking at that stuff in real time. They're monitoring it. They're looking for highs and lows. What's super interesting is we take vibratory analysis, we take acoustic analysis, we take heat and temperature and pressure, and the models can start detecting failure or the propensity for failure. There was and this is public knowledge. So when I was working at Amazon, Georgia Pacific, it's a paper manufacturer, boxboard manufacturer. They make all paper products. They started doing machine learning years ago. And so what's interesting about that is that, so they had a couple of problems, and we can kind of go into this. So they had a couple of problems. Number one, they were having a labor shortage of engineers and maintenance people to go out into these plants in the middle of nowhere, right? Like, Monticello, Georgia is in the middle of nowhere, and they would have these job openings open for years, and no one would want to fulfill them. But they needed that help. And the other problem that they were having was, the ability to adopt technology and consistency across all of their organization. And so they solved that problem a couple of ways. Number one, they opened up this really high tech office near Georgia Tech in downtown Atlanta.
I love Georgia Tech. I'm really into sustainability, and they have a really cool building. And that's another topic we need to cover on this podcast.
Absolutely.
The sustainability is going to be huge
Absolutely.
with the amount of energy that's consumed. But that's for another topic.
Absolutely.
But continue. You just got me excited.
Yeah.
I love that campus.
So what was interesting is they opened up this this location near Georgia Tech downtown, and were just inundated with engineers and Georgia Tech graduates and people. And so they actually created this center of excellence in downtown Atlanta, and they were able to get people who knew Python and machine learning and analytics, and they had all these people. They weren't industrial people or manufacturing people, but they were technologists, and they loved working there. And then they started bringing all of their seasoned technologists and the people who understood the paper industry and understood the manufacturing process into here and working with them. And in a short amount of time, they started building machine learning models for predictive maintenance to understand when things would fail. So, hearing there's presentations that you can look up online. They were talking about how they could look at their critical assets. So they would, they first started. They took a couple of critical assets in a paper mill or in a manufacturing plant, and they said, okay, this is an expensive asset. This is a critical asset. Whatever this is, could have been a bearing, could have been a pump, could have been a shaft, could something, right? And they started taking data off of it, and they go, well, what can we do with it? We don't know. Started looking at it. They built some models. Then they built some additional models. Then they iterated. They had engineers come in, and they would ask them questions like, what would you need? If somebody just dropped you in, what would it look like? How would you detect if this is healthy or not healthy? And they would talk, and then they would take that and iterate and experiment more. And now they have these models that are, this is a couple of years ago, these models that are 60% confident that in 90 days, this is going to fail.
So they can send the technician out.
So then literally, they will call, so the operations center will call the maintenance staff and say, hey, I know that the standard maintenance on this asset is not for a couple more weeks or a couple more months, but we're getting an anomaly detection on it. Could you go by and check it? And the maintenance technician will put it on his list. He'll go by and check it and go, you know what? It was a little warm, or it was doing something weird. That was a couple of years ago that they were doing that. So those models are getting better. And I presented, I mentioned this story in a presentation I did once, and I was like, if you're not doing anything in 2023, that's who you're competing with, and that was several years ago. Mm-hmm. Good luck, right? They're already living this and breathing this. Another anecdote they told was they were bringing on a new plant, and this operations team that did the analytics, they're like, well, the plant's not online. We have all of our sensors in place, we have everything in place, but we're not really monitoring it. It's just sitting there because it's not part of our operations yet. And the plant apparently was, had some delays and there's some things going on. But they contacted them. They said, all right, can you look and see what you see? Like, we're trying to get this plant up and running. We're trying to get it online. Can you tell us what you see? They were able to identify misalignments. They were able to identify some misplacements. They were able to identify a lot of things with just the machine learning models, because the machine learning models were coming back, yeah, this isn't right, this isn't right, this isn't right. And you give that information to an engineer, and they go look at it with that idea, something's wrong with it, and they go, oh, it's not lined up. Oh, it's not installed correctly. Oh, so they were able to start knocking off a couple of things and help the plant, recoup some of their startup time.
Yeah.
Machine learning.
I know. It's exciting stuff.
Yeah.
And our next episode, we're going to jump more into what we're doing to ideate in Juno Labs. That is our internal lab at Resolve Tech Solutions. So we ideate internally and externally with our clients. So thank you for tuning in, and we will be back next week with more modern tech and transformation.